Well, welcome to the Broker Bartenders Halloween edition,
Halloween edition. That's right. Happy Halloween,
October
my man.
October 31st, 2024. Yeah, happy Halloween. Getting ready for all the neighborhood kiddos to cruise through the neighborhood and wipe me out of all the candy, which is fine. So, yeah, we're all set, ready to go. Halloween for you guys. You guys doing anything?
So we did a Halloween party over the weekend. I'm not really a Halloween guy.
Right.
So basically I dressed like me, but unbuttoned one extra button on the black collared shirt and was Hank Moody from Californication because that's like his uniform. So I dressed as me with one extra button open. It was a hit.
Did everybody know what that was? Did you have to explain it?
I had to explain it. Everyone's like, oh, we're in a costume. Like, well, not really. This is just to make Sunny happy, which I'm quite happy to do ish. But here we live in a not private neighborhood, but it's only 36 houses and we're kind of set off the beaten path a little bit. So we're not exactly a destination neighborhood for the kids. Which works out in my favor because Sunny buys candy like we have 100 kids coming.
Yep. And then you have to eat it all.
And then the candy's left for Maverick here. So I'm pretty okay with however it shakes out.
Yeah, we tried the full size candy bars last year. Ooh. Yeah, so they got wiped out pretty quick.
That's how you end up with a reputation for that.
Yep, people are coming, and then they started busing kids into our street, our neighborhood.
Well,
bringing them in by the van load for that. So we're gonna pull back a little bit this year and just go fun size again. We're gonna go fun size.
Love that. Now, are you gonna have are you gonna end up like a stale listing that just reduced their price? You know, is that like kind of the analogy of last year we had this and now we have this?
Yeah, now we're kind of
altering.
Yeah, so there might be some further negotiation involved with the kids. We'll see how that plays out. Where they're like, hey, can I take 3? Is it the 3 fun size equal a full size? Sure, I'm not sure I have the exact calculations on that, but yeah, I always hey, grab a handful, you do you, and enjoy. So, but again, here in Colorado, they're all wearing ski jackets and gloves because it's cold. So you never kind of really see what their costumes are for the most part anyway. So
it is 80 degrees here today in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I will say though, having spent 20 years in Colorado, University of Colorado, go Buffs, and then staying in Denver afterwards, I don't remember too many Halloweens where it did not snow. My first Halloween of 2002, dumped snow. And I was like, what did I move to? Because everybody said, the weather changes in Colorado and, you'll have shorts in January. Well, it snowed on Halloween too. So it's weather you guys get is pretty crazy. I'm enjoying this tropical Halloween. Palm trees and the like. It's pretty nice.
I don't know. You're not a Halloween guy. I mean, is there a special, I don't even know if there's really like a Halloween drink that's kind of, it's always like sometimes I'll just see somebody adding something to a drink that makes it, I don't know, they call it a spooky something based on, they add some sort of coloring to it that makes it look black or Halloween version or something like that. So yeah, I don't even know if there's any Halloween cocktails out there.
We went to that party this weekend and actually going to talk about the person whose Halloween party we went to. It's a good friend of ours, Winnie, from a competing brokerage of mine. And she made this like gin gimlet thing in a big old dispenser, like an iced tea dispenser, but with a bunch of booze in it. I was like, how is this spooky and Halloween? She goes, no, but I put blackberries in it, like dark, like Halloween.
Oh,
like, I don't know if that's
counts. I mean, official. I drop some dry ice in there so that the smoke, I guess, will get it.
I'd love to say A for effort, but
yeah, not so much.
That's not so much. Swing and a miss there, win, but that's okay. We still love you.
So speaking of competing brokerages and kind of what we're going to be touching on today, as we kind of continue to progress through this evolution of the new way of doing real estate. So you and I were talking a little bit about on the communication style of working with another agent and, making sure that we are all on the same page as far as, I guess, how compensation works on both sides, and, what's involved in making sure that it's noted, that all parties agree. I know here in Colorado, we have on our contracts, it's on the contract now where you can select which option you're going to do. If it's going to be the seller, if it's going to be the broker to broker compensation component, or if the buyer's going to handle all that. So, but, you had touched a little bit on, how that may be creating some division amongst agents, right? And what the end goal for us and what we're trying to do is we're trying to all get along and make sure that everybody's happy as best as we can make everybody happy. But tell me a little bit about kind of what you were coming across in this particular piece of where this is now for us in real estate based on the changes.
Yeah, so I've always said, the agents can really make or break the transaction, right? Because when you really boil it down, the communication flows almost entirely through us. I've always kind of made us analogous to like the special advisor to the president. That person has no actual authoritative power, but they filter everything through that's coming from the Joint Chiefs or the Senate or the Congress runs through that person. They deliver that message in a way that needs to be received to the president. President tells the advisor and filters it right back down, right? So that if you think about the buyer or seller as the president, we're flowing and keeping that information through them. But so really that communication and the bulk of the transaction and the communication of happens from agent to agent. So we really can make or break a transaction by working together towards a common goal, because let's remember, at the end of the day, we're looking to exchange keys for cash, right? That's really all it is. We tend to complicate it a little bit more than that at times,
right?
But we're taking somebody who has 4 walls and a roof and keys, and we're trying to give that 4 walls and a roof and those keys to someone else for cash. In this new world, when all the changes launched, they launched kind of a soft launch August 5th here, hard launch August 17th here. I thought it was going to open up more communication amongst the agents. I envisioned this world where, Tom, you've got a house you're looking to sell. I have a buyer who's potentially interested in that house. I schedule a showing. I call ahead. We have an even more in-depth conversation around compensation. What does that look like? No matter what, I show the house. I just want to know what I'm literally and figuratively walking into. I thought that would give you the opportunity to say, hey, Ryan, that's great. But before you see the house, let me tell you about this feature. Let me go beyond the listing description. And I was talking to an agent in my office last week in a little mastermind group that we were doing. In the last week and a half, I've seen 27 houses. I have gotten 3 full conversations with agents, not even just around compensation, about feedback, anything. To me, it's almost like communication has gone down, and I'm starting to feel this tension in the industry, and it's making a lot of the interactions with agents feel more adversarial. And that's really counterintuitive what it should be. We're supposed to be advocates for our clients. We're supposed to get the best deal possible, but it doesn't have to have that tension and friction in order to do it. And I'm feeling that more. I just put a deal under contract actually just an hour ago, and it took us a day or so to get there, offer, counter offer and all that. But the agent and I were joking that we spent more time trying to figure out how my brokerage wanted the compensation agreement signed, because ours is outside the contract in South Carolina. It's a separate addendum to the contract. His brokerage does it one way. My brokerage does it another way. His needs his to be compliant. I need mine to be compliant. And we were joking about that. We figured it out. It was more joking along the way, like, oh my God, this is not a nightmare, but we spent more time trying to figure that portion of the deal out than the actual transaction itself. So, but imagine that wasn't a cooperative agent. Imagine I was not a cooperative agent. That, in theory, could have stalled the conversations and negotiations around what actually mattered, which is my buyer and his seller.
Yep.
And, you go on these, I'm sure you're on those too, like the Real Estate Mastermind and Lab Coat Agents, those online forums that we all go on to. And somebody will be asking for advice. They'll say, located in Colorado.
Yep.
Somebody from Florida chimes in and says, this is how I do it. Somebody in Minnesota tells the person in Florida how wrong they are. The person in Minnesota is right for Minnesota. Person from Florida is right for Florida. But it's so different. And again, it becomes so adversarial on those comments and posts. And again, I'm just feeling all this tension in the business. And what I had hoped would be a path to greater collaboration almost seems like it's more of a division. Are you feeling that as well?
Yeah. So when you're referencing the social media component, for sure. I mean, every time you go on there and I've kind of pulled back a little bit on, just some commenting on it, because like you said, you put something out there that may be specific for how you do business, may not necessarily be, something that they want to do for their business. And then the whole state specific components of what what contracts are, what the rules are for their MLS, things like that. So, I think I see more. I see people commenting. Gosh, they were like, "Hey, gosh, that was kind of a little aggressive in your response." They were just asking a legitimate question. It may not be legitimate to them, right? Because and we all know the ones that are like, well, Ryan, I've been doing this for 30 years now. And, you need to, if you don't know what you're doing by now, you need to pick, you need to find another career. And so they're out there, right, with that. So, but I think with some of those changes and, some of the newer people that are getting into real estate, or they were just getting into real estate when all this happened, they have legitimate questions, and they're just kind of trying to reach out for help on what they're kind of dealing with. Or the other response is ask your broker, right? And so, and they always preface it with like, okay, before you say ask my broker, here's what I'm thinking. So so there's that snarkiness, I think, that's out there. And again, though, like you said, the whole purpose of what we were trying to do is to have more communication. This was supposed to create, that better communication piece. People were saying, okay, now I'm going to have to call and I'm going to have to ask the agent what the compensation is and what are you offering? And people are like, put it in the contract, or they say, hey, or here's what it is. And I think from my experience and what I've been dealing with on the last deals that I've been doing is, initially, I kind of started having those conversations. Hey, jokingly, okay, are you ready for the question? And they know what I'm going to ask. So we're joking about it, right? They're like, yeah, go ahead and ask me. I'm like, okay, so what are you offering for compensation? Okay, 2.5, 2.8, 3%, whatever, right? Yeah. So they're like, okay, cool. And so then you just kind of you get down to how that's going to get paid out. And, so I think for the most part, here specifically, I haven't really kind of dealt with a whole lot of angst or snarkiness, or and maybe I'm just lucky that way. The deals that I've been and having those, I think that's why it's important to have those initial conversations.
Agreed.
Anyway, when you're even preparing an offer, and just having that call and say, hey, we're thinking about writing an offer, and just wanted to get your thoughts on, kind of what's going on, what's happening, and, having those normal conversations. But I'll be honest, I have had a couple that were kind of a little bit shorter, in the conversation, and just go ahead and write an offer up, get it to me. We'll take a look at it and see kind of what goes on from there. And then, you just put your compensation in there. We may counter back or whatever.
Right.
So, but I'd say that's probably a small percentage of all the recent deals that I've done. I think for the most part, they've been pretty, the conversations have gone pretty well. And I think,
or decent enough.
Yeah, decent enough. I think so. I think I've been fortunate enough to haven't really kind of come across that. But I think in the bigger scope, what we're seeing out there, and especially on on the social media sites,
Mhm.
is yeah, a little bit more snarky and a little bit more, um, I'm bigger than you, kind of,
Yeah.
some responses.
And I think it's fear, truly.
Mhm.
I was having this conversation. It was such an interesting dynamic I was having in this conversation with my employing broker, who's become like as I enter back into production full time and out of leadership, I feel like I've needed a little bit more of that big brother mentor role again that I used to fill in leadership, but now I've kind of needed that as I pivoted my career back to production. And he and I were talking, and we kind of came on this idea, and it started with him saying something really unique in our sales meeting. He said, who really has this the best is the new agents. They've never done it any other way. They know one way of doing things, and they have to learn it from the
That
start.
way. Yep.
And then he said, the senior agents, they're well versed in conversation and navigating changes in the market. But one of the things I started seeing in conversations and what I've just kind of gauged as the temperature and pulse from the social media, he and I were talking about, and we kind of landed on agents years like 3 through 10 are built for this because we have enough experience to handle things transactionally without so much by way of years of bad habits. It's the agents that are 0 to 2 years that don't know how to have the real estate conversation in and around the compensation. And it's the agent that's that same one, like you referenced, oh, I've been doing this for 25 years. They really only know one way of doing things. It's in your market, it's one way in the contract. In mine, it's guaranteed or was guaranteed by the MLS. So they're struggling with how to navigate this new world. And so you have these people in this midpoint of a career who aren't jaded enough by 25 years of this, that, or the other,
Right.
but they have enough experience to handle it. I thought that was a really interesting take that we were kind of coming upon. And I just started thinking about the agents that I know that are having a lot of success right now. To a man or a woman, predominantly years 3 through 10, maybe an 11 or 12, maybe a 2. But for the most part, it's people with less than 15 years of experience. That was interesting and a big takeaway. And I think what's going to come out of this, coming back to that fear component, I feel like the anger and the tension is coming from the agent who is not sure truly how to handle this, and they have not adapted properly in this new world, and they're struggling.
Right.
I think there's the ones whose production are starting to go down. We came out of that post-COVID market where what's that joke? You can kind of just sneeze and have deals come your way.
Yep.
To many, it was true because your skills or lack thereof were kind of covered up. We didn't write good offers. We wrote winning offers. We negotiated almost against ourselves. If you were a listing agent, you threw a sign on the ground, you took pictures. Now, certain agents could do better and get more for their clients, but 40 offers were coming your way almost no matter what you did. As
Right.
long as you were within 10%, 5% of the price that it should have been, you got it and you got it figured out. Now that's not happening anymore. And the deal count is shrinking for them. And I don't think they're used to that. I think they're over leveraged. I think they project 30 deals for the year, and that's Q4 of 2024, and they've got 11. Great year, but not, and they probably spent based on whatever that number is. So I think what's going to come out of this 2025, 2026, I think agent count's going to go way down, way, way down. And I think for the most part, what's going to be left are not just the talented agents, but the ones that are equipped to be more interpersonal.
Right.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. And, everybody was speculating that, when the changes were going to happen, everybody, they were like, okay, well, this is going to be good because it's going to be thinning the herd. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get down to the people that have been doing it, that treat their business as a business, and they're not just in it for the quick buck. As we all saw that influx during that COVID period where, yeah, I mean, you had a t-shirt on that said, I'm a realtor, and you got 10 deals.
Yeah.
And so they were like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
I don't have to do shit and I'm making bank. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
now where are they? Right. And so they're the ones that are dropping out and dropping
Mm-hmm.
off. And because they didn't prepare, they didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
plan, they didn't make the adjustments. They don't, necessarily have that engagement component,
Mm-hmm.
the personality, maybe, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, that they just kind of didn't, they didn't care, uh,
Mm-hmm.
whatever happened. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that goes back a little bit too, even when we were seeing the shift during that COVID period where, it was like you and I would get, if you and I were doing a deal, we were at closing together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or we saw each other.
Yeah.
And I think it even got to a period where there was, you're just doing the deal on the phone. You never
Mm-hmm.
see it. You never see the other agent. You're never in contact with them in person. You're not
Mm-hmm.
at the closing table anymore. Everything is all separated. And I think there's that, um, I guess room where they're just kind of like, hey, I can do and act how I want because I'm never going to have to engage
Mm-hmm.
with this other agent in
Yeah.
person. It's like the talking crap when the with the window rolled up, right? You can
Yeah.
talk smack all day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's that piece of it as well for agents that are not, they haven't been engaging,
Mm-hmm.
and so therefore they just kind of carry that on, as they move forward in their transactions as well. It's like I don't really have to engage as much, and so this is how I'm gonna, this is how I'll do it. And if I appear snarky, then so what?
So be it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a
So
shame, but what I think comes out of that will be more collaboration and something, that's you and I were talking about that yesterday, the tension and being adversarial and feeling that adversarial piece to it, right? Today I got to teach my first class as an agent, not as a leader, at my new brokerage. And I mentioned our friend Winnie, I've known through Keller Williams through the KYP network before I even moved to Charleston. I knew who she was.
mhm.
She's one of those Keller Williams celebrities. Like everyone knew who that was.
Right.
So I got here and her and I became friends. And we stayed in contact even after I left Keller Williams for another brokerage where you are now at JMG, and stayed friends now that I'm at Coldwell Banker. And I was teaching that class and I was so excited. And I invited my chief content officer, Sunny, my chief girlfriend officer. She came to the class with me to take some photos, good for the gram and all that stuff.
Yep.
Sunny and Winnie have become really good friends as well. Yeah,
Nice.
possibly even closer than Winnie and I, which makes me happy. I'm glad that they're connecting and all that. But I asked Winnie, I said, you teach classes, because she travels around the country like I used to, teaching classes for Keller Williams. I said, I'd love your feedback. I'd love your take on it. Would you come? And I, of course, checked with my broker. He's like, yeah, open door policy. We don't care about that. We're all here to help each other, which I really appreciated. And I asked Winnie about that. Would you come? Without skipping a beat, she was like, I'm there. Wouldn't miss it. And I texted her this morning, kind of like a listing appointment, texting to confirm, hey, just confirming you're going to be at my class at 1:00. And she goes, I was just about to text you. Wouldn't miss it. It got me thinking, right? So I taught that class. And at the end, I asked for questions, comments, concerns, stupid statements. In the Coldwell Banker brokerage, I was lucky enough to have about 40 people in the room. Winnie was asking questions and engaging with the Coldwell Banker people. So often I think we have this inter-brokerage adversarial mindset, like, oh, forget these people and this brokerage and this one sucks and this one's this type of agent and all that other stuff. Right. She was right there in the, as she's put on Instagram, right in the lion's den, and everyone was accepting. Everyone was nice. And I started thinking about that. So you and I talked yesterday about doing this. You and I are at different brokerages. I'm texting with our friend Kellen last night, who is a big hitter at Sotheby's now because he's a Dodgers fan and I'm a Yankees fan. he and I are texting as friends. Winnie's coming to my class. Now you and I are doing this together. It's both now. Even more than I was thinking last night of, yes, it's adversarial over here and it's getting this new context over here, but over here, it's almost like we're coming back together a little bit. So it feels like we're separating into these two groups. And I think that's almost a simile, metaphor, whatever you want to call that. My college English skills are failing me. But that's almost this group over here wants us all to succeed and is brokerage agnostic about it. We all just want to grow together. And over here, it's adversarial. And I started thinking more about that of, I think we're going to head to this place over here where Winnie can come to Coldwell Banker and then I can do a podcast with you. I'm not like, hey, JMG this, or you're not Coldwell Banker that, and Winnie's not this or that. As sad and disappointed I am in the industry over here on this level, that made me happy. That gave me hope. And granted, it's such a small sample size of 3 people.
Right.
It's 3 people or 4 people at 4 different brokerages. And there's still some gentle ribbing. Winnie was like, oh, why don't you come back to Keller Williams? Because she wants me there and she's a recruiter and she wants the downline. Why wouldn't she?
Right.
Why wouldn't you? Right. And my broker was like, Winnie, you're allowed in this room and welcome anytime. Just know I'm going to take my shots. I'm going to try and get you over here.
Right.
But it was kind and it was gentle. And I hope that that's where we're headed. Even we're going to pull apart. And the ones over here pulling away, they're going to fall off.
Right.
And they're going to be that one that gets that reputation when you see that listing. Because we do get reputations in the business. You see a certain listing by a certain listing agent, my number changes of what I recommend my clients do. If I'm going to offer on a house from, her in your market, Jessica Lentz, my number actually might go up because she's as wonderful and sweet as she is, she scares me. And I don't want to, I know I can't lowball her because she's going to come back higher.
Right.
Whereas there are other agents in our markets that we know we see that name and like, well, I'm coming in lower now.
Yeah.
We get reputations. And I think those people over there are going to filter themselves out. And I think over here, we're going to pick up more and grow together. And I think that's what's going to not fix the industry, but really help our public perception, right?
Which is in the dirt.
It's in the dirt, 100%. And the lawsuits made it worse.
Right.
Because we're almost doing more infighting than anything else, which is almost proving the point that wasn't there to begin with. It's,
right.
The cart chasing the horse on this. And it's terrible. But if what comes out of it is a higher quality agent, not just for our benefit in the business, but an average higher quality agent for the consumer, I think the indirect result of this will still be strong. At least that's my pie in the sky, optimistic, the world's not completely on fire kind of hope.
Yeah, well, there are some of us that, that's what we want. We want the industry as a whole to become better or to be as best as it can be. Mm-hmm. And so it all goes back to the relationship component, right? Mm-hmm. So it's having the relationships, not only with your clients, right? But mm-hmm. it's having the relationships with the other agents, and that, like you were talking about with the reputation, and knowing that working with Ryan or working with Tom is going to be a great transaction, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to work out, right? There's not going to be a whole lot of, angst. I think I've said angst probably 10 times today, but you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
As far as, it's going to work out as best as it can, mm-hmm. Based on the relationship between the two agents, because either we've done deals together before, mm-hmm. or, we do things the right way. We try to do things the right way, and doing what is best for our clients. Right. And so again, it doesn't go back to, to us, what's best for us. But mm-hmm. I think, doing these, doing what we're doing with the broker bartenders, engaging mm-hmm. other professionals in the
Mhm.
business that are of the same thought process of how can we get our industry back to that level
Mhm.
of maybe where it was previously.
Mhm.
And that time and that period had its faults, but
Sure.
we're trying to change the perception, uh, for the public, but also for our industry as well within
Mhm.
within agents, within the agent piece of that. So I totally agree. It doesn't have to be about JMG. It doesn't have to be about Coldwell Banker. It doesn't have to be about Keller Williams, Century 21, or whoever. Right.
Mhm.
So it's like, how are we able to do this so that we're all in it together to make it the best possible career
Mhm.
that we can make it. And so, yeah, I think it really it is that relationship piece. That's where it starts. That small piece of it that starts. Having that relationship and building those relationships that you can carry on and have those great transactions.
Yeah. It went farther for me today too. Of a friend of mine and Sonny's, she owns a creative space. She does like wedding photography and videography and corporate videography and corporate photography and things like that. She's wildly creative. Actually helped her buy a house about a year ago. She's so creative and she's so unique in how she approaches business. And she started I don't even want to call it a podcast because that's not really what it is, but she started like interviewing people one on one. And I love the look that it had. And I don't know what struck me about it, but I went to Winnie today and I said, what I think would be really interesting was, and I'm curious if you're interested at all in this. What if we started a very local mastermind, not an additional like podcast, but we got call it a roundtable of it be completely brokerage agnostic. No two agents can be from the same brokerage, and every brokerage that we can find can be represented. So we get a Compass agent, we get a Sotheby's agent, we get a Coldwell agent, and a KW agent,
Mm-hmm.
and we sit down as a roundtable and film it, but just have conversations about what we're seeing and what our take is it from our unique perspective from our brokerages, because every brokerage is taking a unique look and take on this, particularly from a contractual or legal context. You and I were talking about how I have unique contracts that allow me to do something you're not currently able to do. Part of that's a state problem, not a brokerage problem.
Right.
But you now have a unique perspective on X, Y, and Z. So your conversation, even with your clients, might be different. With your broker, might be different. And she was so open and receptive to that. She said, "Yeah, let's just get something like let's start a cool kids club." And
Mm-hmm.
it just started to feel like when I was in Denver and you and I were at KW and we had the brokerage to end all brokerages, and it wasn't because or not because it was KW. Brendan was a great leader, brought the right people. But do you remember having under that roof, we had a Brendan Bardick and a Catherine Bardick. We had the up and comers like you, Anthony Muscatello, Percy Sample, Meg Pitkin, Taylor Wilson, Sarah Nolan. There was something, it really felt like this little cool kids club that I was so grateful to be a part of, because everyone around me was either a heavy hitter or up and coming clear talent that was going to get there.
Right.
Person's at the agency now doing what, 30, 35 million a year.
Right.
Meg's doing 20, 30 million a year. Sarah and Taylor, I think, are going to do like 50 million, 100 million this year. It was so amazing to be around those people. And Brendan like sneezes 100 million in volume. I want to recreate that. And I want that to be a little bit more brokerage agnostic. Even though that was kind of brokerage agnostic there, the centerpiece was not Keller Williams as a brokerage. That just was the building we were under.
Right.
I miss that feeling. I miss the happy hours together. I miss
Sure.
you guys were all, you have coworkers and then your buddies, I still talk to Muscatello. I still talk to. We're doing this thing together. I haven't seen you other than once in person in what, 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it was Halloween. Halloween. When was that? 3 years ago? Was it 3 years ago?
Yeah, 2021. Halloween
Yep.
of 21. You were here visiting Charleston. Jack was looking at potential College of Charleston.
Yep.
But other than that, I haven't seen you in 4 years. And you and I talk all the time.
Right.
I talk to Jess from KW all the time. I talk to Brendan every once in a while. If I hear or see a post from Percy or Meg Pitkin, or sometimes I get messages from Scott McManaway, like commenting something on my on an Instagram that I posted, and it just warms me up. That was such a fun time. We were competition for each other technically because we're all independent contractors trying to get our piece of pie, but not one of it was I'm better than you, other than a fun I'm better than you. Like, let me go get this. Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna go do this.
Right.
And
it was always challenging. Yeah, we were challenging each other.
And growing together
for those. Yeah, I mean, it was. But again, what that boils down to is those relationships that we've established over the years with these people that we're still in contact with on a pretty routine basis. Some more than others.
Yeah.
But we're still all connected, and we're all in different places. Now there are a few that are still at that office, and they're just kind of they're doing their thing there. But we've all gone separate ways, but we all still stay in contact with each other. We're always bouncing ideas off each other, and so no, I think it's great. And I think what we have here with the broker bartenders, I think, is a perfect venue, so to speak, or medium for exactly what you were just talking about. So I think we have the ability to have those people on, and we just, I mean, everybody's on, right? And we're talking about those things, and it's not, it's more than just you and I, and I'm perfectly happy with just you and I. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, 100%. And where it even evolved from that for me was, it started with, here's this thing that I can do local. And we could talk about Charleston specific things with Winnie and whoever it is we get from. I'd love to have, you don't know who it is, but Amy Byrne from Compass. I did a deal with her. It was the most pleasurable, frictionless, but tension deal I've ever done. Like, it was tough. She was a tough agent to work with. And I mean that she pushed back hard on things, but every one of it, amount of it had respect.
Right.
We laughed after we solved the problem. She was, I got this for my client. I got this for my client. I'd still go get a beer with her. It wasn't angry. It was both us fighting and scratching and clawing for our clients, but in a nice way. So I started thinking, like, what if we did that? And then it almost hit me, well, what if we did that here? What if you did that in Denver? And we had like 10, 15, 20 people from various brokerages in different markets sharing the ability of how we're navigating these new waters, because I'm going to pick up things from the Colorado market that I don't have here in the Charleston market. And as will you and yours there. And I think the broker bartenders, because you and I were talking about this earlier, of you and I started this in COVID, and it was about making drinks together because it was just a way for us to keep our sanity while we were isolated. And especially in Colorado, we weren't really allowed to go much of anywhere. We started making drinks together, and we brought people on, and we made the drinks. But as you and I were talking earlier today, when I think of a bartender, I don't think of just the guy or gal that's making the drinks. I think of them more like the old-timey barber. Like, they're more like a psychologist. They're more like the one you go talk to about your problems, like the Cheers bar. Those weren't bartenders. Those were big brothers, big sisters. They were a priest and a psychologist, and they gave you advice about this thing or that thing. If you have relationship problems, you might call your brothers or your sister or your parents or whatever, but you might just go grab an ice cold Yingling down at the bar, sitting there and asking your bartender at your local Cheers bar, Like, hey, Tom, and he slides a Yingling or a Corona over your way. How's things going?
Let me tell you.
Let me tell you. And, they throw the towel over the shoulder and lean over the bar at you. And, I had something like that myself. I was just blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
I think that's what the unique thing that you and I have is. And I think that's more what you and I had a vision for of the bartender is not just the drink pourer. It's the psychologist and the medium through which people are brought together, the commonality, because drinking and alcohol, it doesn't even have to be that, but it's a social element, right? It's a thing that it can be a social glue, but we can be a social glue as a bartender, as it were, for other people to talk about the things that we're all going through, because Lord knows I need a real estate psychologist from time to time. I need a real estate relationship psychologist. I don't know how to handle everything that I'm going through.
Right.
And I need that. We already have this community of people. Let's grow it.
Yep. And by no means are we the be all end all. We have all the answers. That's not what this is. We're not going to be able to solve every problem. We're not going to be able to answer every single question. That's going to be real estate related, but we have other people on that are able to answer that question, or they've gone through something that we've haven't gone through. I'm trying to think of things that maybe we have never gone through, but I'm sure there's something out there that we haven't had to deal with. And I think that's a really good. That's really what we wanted to do with the broker bartenders again. It started out as COVID. It was a happy hour get together because we were all locked in our basement. We couldn't go anywhere to do anything. And so we still needed to stay connected with that. But now it is that component of, gosh, here's what's, how's it going? What's, what are you dealing with? What's going on today? Here's what I'm dealing with. What do you think? What do other people think? And then there's always even the guy sitting next to you at the bar that may not have been initially part of that conversation. Then it's always the guy next to the bar, hey, you know what? I was kind of just overhearing you guys talking. Here's what, that happened to me. Right. And so then you start having those conversations and you're bringing somebody else in. Right. Yeah. And then you just developed maybe you developed another relationship with somebody, or it's, maybe he was just, I think, and then you're like, okay, move on, buddy. But so I think there's a lot of opportunity for that, to bring people together to kind of go over that. And that's exactly what we're trying to do by leading this Broker Bartenders, podcast. And it can, it can develop into anybody, anywhere, where we have, people can, that they can come across our podcast and say, hey, I'd love to be part of that. And eventually we get to the point too where we have people that are kind of chiming in on questions that they have. And, Mary from, Georgia, she had this question, she had this same scenario happen to her. And this is how she handled it, or this is what she did. And so I think it has that opportunity to really kind of grow with that. And I think, that's the ultimate goal of what we wanted to set out to do. Well, initially we set out to just have fun and have a couple drinks and do some happy hour stuff. But I think as it's built, I think we're building it bigger, and, we want to have that engagement as an industry and talk about some of those things that we can try to make ourselves better.
I had this analogy thought earlier of, I was talking to someone at the office today because, I am one of, if not the world's largest University of Colorado Buffaloes fan, other than maybe Peggy, Prime's always talking about our girl Peggy. Peggy.
Other than that, maybe Mark Johnson, maybe.
Yeah. But I'm a huge CU fan, and I'm watching the game the other night, and, it was 10 o'clock kickoff here, East Coast time. So I was up until about 2:30 watching the game. But I had a thought, and maybe it was because I had one or two or six too many of Winnie's, raspberry spooky gimlets or whatever the hell it was called.
What the heck? Yeah.
And I definitely got into the Yinglings after that when I got home.
You were seeing ghosts?
I was seeing ghosts for Halloween. That's for damn sure. But I was looking at the crowd, right? And I went to the University of Colorado. I come from the small town on the east end of Long Island of 2,000 people. And I went to a place that had wildly different, let me say political views, but social views and political views than I grew up with. But never once at a University of Colorado game did I ever feel like the fan across from me, it didn't matter if their political beliefs were wildly different than mine, their social beliefs were wildly different than mine. There was this unifying factor of we share this love and passion for our Buffs. And that's one of the things I love so much about sports. It is a universal binding of people. You know, everyone's yelling. I mean, we're coming up on the election on Tuesday. As much as I'm seeing the real estate stuff, it's more this candidate sucks, or I love this candidate, or this can't, you know, without getting into I'm not getting sucked into that whirlpool of nonsense. But,
Yep.
you know, when I watch the Buffs game, there is someone in the crowd that is there's a Trump fan sitting right next to a Harris fan, and they are not talking about Trump and Harris. They are high-fiving Shador, throwing one to the future 2024 Heisman winner, Travis Hunter. I'm calling it now. How beautiful is that? That sports is this binding agent for us. And I don't know why that same formula, and obviously a much smaller scale, can be applied for us in real estate. I don't care who you're voting for. I don't care what your beliefs are. You and I are friends because of shared experiences that we go through. And us poor CU fans have a lot of shared bad experiences over the last 20 years.
Right.
But it's a unifier.
Right.
And that's what, call me an optimist or whatever, but my hope for this, as you and I go through this, isn't just you and I having some fun every once in a while, which it is fun. I have a great time. I got a nice cold beer while I'm talking to my friend. Like, there's worse things a guy could do with his time. But I have this pie in the sky dream, and it's not about, you know, making this the number one podcast on the planet or anything like that. It's more about how can we create a better environment for our industry and help others feel included in that. And so we all come together and win. I know that's a little Boulder hippie of me, but man, that's my dream.
Yeah, and it's about and going back to your analogy on the sports side, it's all about celebrating success, right? Celebrating successes, celebrating those wins, right? As, you know, separating the, you know, whatever political component or anything like that, right? It's all about what we're doing together and celebrating those successes, and or when we're talking about, you know, how do we get people to that level of success, and so that we can celebrate their successes, because, you know, if we can help someone get to that next level and win, then we're all high-fiving, and we're all, you know, getting together because they just scored the touchdown, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what it is at the end of the day, is having that, you know, having that win or having that touchdown pass, or and celebrating that success where you're high-fiving someone that in a normal situation, you would have been walking down the street and never looked their way.
After I finished my class today, there was an agent. She's newer to the business. She joined a team in our office, just closed her first listing yesterday. And she said, "Oh my God, your class was unbelievable. I felt like I was hearing from a twin. Everything about how you run your business is how I want to run my business in the future." And you could just see her beaming with pride about having closed her first listing. And she said, "You know, in hindsight, I would have done almost everything differently after hearing how you run your business and how you go about listing presentations and working with your sellers." She said, but I could see this pride all over her face. Now I didn't make $1 on that,
right?
But I was so happy that she shared that success with me, because I remember my first closing. I remember Kellen taking me out And we weren't always doing the best financially in the beginning, but man, going out with Kellen, after I closed my first deal, we walked across the street in Highlands Ranch to Buffalo Wild Wings, and I don't think I've ever drank that many 24 ounce tall boy Coors Lights.
Coors Lights
in my entire life.
Yeah,
I was drunk on wings and Coors Light that night, and it was just so amazing to be celebrating this success with someone that cared about me. And I knew Kellen had closed 1 million deals. You know, he was a mega agent and a luxury agent in Aspen. He was a highly successful commercial agent in Los Angeles before coming to Colorado. And here he is just throwing them back at Buffalo Wild Wings on a Friday night with his buddy, celebrating his first closing. I think I made like $2,000.
Yeah, which was probably, I was going to say, it was probably like your first deal was probably like 300 grand.
Yeah. Well, I was on a team at the time, and the splits, and I split it with Kellen because I wanted a senior person to teach me how to do it.
Right.
So I split with a team, with a brokerage, and I split the deal with Kellen. So there was not a whole lot of money left over for me, but man, celebrating that success.
Yeah, what a feeling.
Kellen, and I remember, I think he was happier about it than I was. And I was, don't get me wrong, I was the happiest guy there is, but I think Kellen was just 2% happier.
Yep.
Because he saw the effect that had on me, and he knew, partially due to his efforts and help, he was setting me down this path to where I'm blessed to be today. And I was lucky enough to do that as coach at the Keller Williams office in Denver with you and Muscatello and Percy and Georgina and all the people we talked about. I'm so grateful to have been a part of it. And I beam with pride when I see Meg Pitkin post that she just got another one under contract. It makes me I'm not making any money off you guys anymore. That's not.
But it's a group. Yeah, it's a crew. It's a relationship piece that we've established, right? Mm-hmm. And celebrating those wins and those successes. And like you saying with Kellen, he was celebrating you and that first closing that you had, right? And then now we're doing the same thing, right? So we're paying it forward in a sense. We're just carrying that forward and continuing for new agents or people that we come across, some of the newer agents that I have on my team that join our brokerage here, and getting that first, hey, you got your first listing, right? Mm-hmm. Whether or not even you sell it, right? But you got your first listing, right? And so there's the excitement that's about that, because it wasn't even the closing at one point. It was like I got my first listing. And I remember my first listing, I'm like, oh my God, just got my first listing. This is amazing, right? I'm going to, this is so great. And you're sharing that with other people, and they're celebrating that. And that's what we're kind of trying to do now, because we've all been there.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if there's a more vivid memory I have in my entire real estate or coaching career than Anthony Muscatello. His first deal was a for sale by owner listing that he converted. He was willing to do it. He took my advice. He ran with it. He put the work in. He helped someone, and he helped them net significantly more than they were trying to get for themselves, even though they paid him too.
Right.
I will never, ever, ever, ever forget that. That was, I don't know if I've ever had a moment where I beamed with pride in a professional setting more than that specific moment, because he did something senior agents won't do. He chased something that everyone else said, don't bother. They're not going to do anything. And I just remember being so proud of him, because it wasn't even about selling the house and getting a check for him. He genuinely wanted to help this woman. She had such a great story, or sad story, however you want to look at it. And he helped her get to the goal that she needed for her why in her life. Man, I will never, ever, ever, ever forget that.
Yep.
I was proud as a coach. I was proud as a friend. I was proud as a human. I was proud as a realtor. And I never want to lose that. And I feel like Kellen gave me so much. I did everything I could to give stuff to you guys. And now I see you guys giving back. I see how much you poured into your agents. And I hope they pour into their agent, and it should go on forever.
Going, yeah. Yep.
But I think it's going to take people, and I don't mean like us, like we're some sort of pillar of awesomeness, staying together and doing things like this and doing things that are brokerage agnostic across markets and bringing people together and trying to figure out the world, the industry, hell, our towns at times are literally and figuratively on fire. At times, it just feels tense everywhere you go. But man, I jump on this call and I talk to you, I talk to Muscatello, and I talk to Kellen, and I talk to that rookie agent in my office, and I'm just so proud of everyone. And some of them are older and more senior than me, and some are younger and more junior than me. And I'm equally happy and proud of all of you. You know, I really hope that as we continue to do more of this, that's what this medium does, right? Brings more of us together and helps, you know, what's that saying? Rising tides and ships
lifts
and
all boats, and
or whatever the heck it is. I want us all to get more. I've always said, and Kellen has always reinforced me, there is enough pie for all of us to not need to go hungry. Doesn't mean you can't try and get a bigger piece, but there's a difference between getting a bigger piece from yourself or for yourself than taking somebody else's piece. There's a difference. You don't take someone else's piece. You might earn someone else's piece, that you might pick up the scraps when they leave the table. You don't take. Take what's left.
Yeah.
And that always landed with me. And I hope and I dream that this allows us to do more of that nationally too. You know?
Well, I think that's, you know, and that's definitely our goal. And, you know, for people that are watching this, if you want to be, you know, be part of that, reach out to us for sure. As you can see on our little scroll at the bottom, you know, follow us at the Broker Bartenders on Instagram. And, you know, we'll start engaging, right? And start having those, you know, having those conversations and having people submit those questions. And we, you know, kind of just try to build that and bring people on and really kind of take that to the next level. And that's really what we're kind of trying to do here, by setting up this Broker Bartenders podcast. So, all right, we're up against it. So, any final thoughts on what do we got? Oh, here's a final thought for you. Speaking of CU, so now we have another house divided because CU is playing Texas Tech.
You had it 2 weeks ago because
with the U of A.
We're playing Jack's Wildcats,
Arizona. Yep. So now we're going to be another house divided this weekend with you know, my wife doing her undergrad at Texas Tech, and you know, Cole being a Texas Tech kid, more along the lines of because it was Patrick Mahomes.
Sure.
Which developed into why he's a Chiefs Chiefs fan. So we've got that coming up this weekend. So what do you got for the score? On the CU Texas Tech?
You know, I've learned that CU's not going to stomp anybody 70-7. I'd love to see it, but I think we're going to have a tight game of two big offenses that can put up some points and two defenses that can actually slow the other team down. I am calling Buffs. I'm going to call it 38-24. No, 38-28. 38-28, you heard it here.
The win by 10.
Win by 10.
Shedeur, 3 touchdowns.
I'm going with 4.
4 touchdowns, 3 passing, 1 rushing.
That's the one.
There you go.
I think Hunter gets 1 more and a pick.
Nice. Yeah, he's probably due.
I want him
first player in Big 12 history, I think is what it was. It won both Offensive Player of the Week and Defensive Player of the Week.
That's
guy's phenomenal.
And I was talking to Kellen about that, as that's kind of my parting shot of, I hope we all realize, we're talking real estate here on this thing, but we are watching some unbelievable sports history that we have never seen before and probably will never see again in 2 sports, in Ohtani in baseball and Hunter in football. And I take nothing away from Ohtani when I say this is to hit every day, pitch every 5 days. It's not every day he's doing both. And even if he is doing both, there's a little intermission, he gets a break, and he's got a long time between pitching, and then you bat once every 3 innings. Hunter gets about 67 seconds off, jumps back on the field.
Yep.
Athletic freak.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
from what I hear, the nicest kid there is. That's who you want to root for. That's the guy that's the real estate agent I want to work with.
Exactly.
Extremely talented, outworks everybody. And yeah, he's going to do a little dance when he gets the listing over you, but man, it's never going to be adversarial. He just wants to win, and he's not going to kill you to do it. He's just going to beat you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for my man, Ryan Clark, my wingman, Ryan Clark, Tom Livingston, thanks for watching us. Don't forget to, check us out at the Broker Bartenders on Instagram. Check us out on YouTube as well. Love to hit that subscribe button. Let's build this thing and take it to the next level.
Tommy.
Peace out.